It is time for another episode of Reggie's Expressions. We are back with part two. Episode one was so great that I had to have a part two because there were so many gem dropperies that we had going on in that conversation. I like that. That we had going on in that conversation, and I just had to wrap it up because I had to go do some other stuff. Which, by the way, that did the interview that I did with those guys went really well. I shared offline with Jamaal that I might have got a real strong contact high because them boys was smoking. And we're in an environment, what I'm saying, I do as the Romans do, so I didn't have any problems with it. But Carlos was there, and he's somewhat allergic to smoke, so he can't. He would have a really bad asthma attack, so he had to leave. And then when we got done, we smelled like we were in a room of just marijuana, seeds just everywhere. Like we grew up.
Wu-Tang Clan.
It was crazy. I was like, for real? And I know I was super paranoid, more because I was high. But keep that between us. Don't tell nobody.
Don't tell nobody.
There's only a couple people that's going to be listening to this. So anyway.
I mean, I'm going to share it. So, you say I have a lot of fans.
Eesh.
Maybe I won't share that part.
I'm going to have to redact that from the record, scratch it from the record. I didn't say that. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. So
he was hacked. He was hacked.
Yes, my page was hacked.
Your account was phished.
So Jamaal and I told my story about the company that I was with, and I had a very distraught experience, and we kind of left it on the terms of saying a few things. But one of the things that I took away from the conversation is that this seems to happen with Black folks often, where we are involved in a circumstantial situation where it involves feelings, and then HR says there's no feelings, and we're firing you because of something that people felt was misunderstood. Right. And we were also talking about the overhauling of HR potentially, and just how they present themselves, because I think realistically they present themselves as being an advocate for the person because HR, but in reality it's really a lawyer for the business. They're going to protect the company's asset. So yeah. So you got done sharing your story in terms of that situation. You did say you knew who told, right?
Kind of, sort of. I kind of made an assumption as to who said what and how it went. So. And you think that it has something to do with sabotaging you to get to the next step? Do you think that was the case, or maybe a little bit of that played into it? I think that was the end result. I think that was a byproduct. I feel like maybe, the individual or individuals possibly, probably were trying to make themselves look good. And then the end result of that became, sabotage for me. I don't think, I want to be careful not to say that it was purposely done to sabotage me. I want to be very careful in saying that. But it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. I won't go, out on a limb and say that that's what I believe happened. I just feel like maybe they felt, doing this, whatever happened, however it happened, would make them look better, in their standing and with the company. And if that's the case, so be it. I'm a very, 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 very firm believer in karma. Even the Bible says, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So if all of that was done maliciously,
1 Corinthians, no, I'm just playing.
Right. If all of that was done, maliciously,
that's
God's
something that they're going to have to answer to. Yeah.
Right. I've said it, to you before. I've said it to the countless people that have called me and texted and emailed, Snapchatted and everything. I'm at peace with it because I know it wasn't anything that I did with malice or ill intent. So it is what it is. If they did it and they were malicious with it, power to them. I wish them well. God help you.
I know a lot of times, in these situations, for me, I know you kind of wonder what people's intentions were when they decided to, expose you in some sort. Because I'm pretty sure they would had to have known that there was no way this was going to come out with no circumstances at all.
Right.
So, I mean, but that's something we never know unless we have an opportunity, which I actually did get an opportunity to reach out to those employees who did what they did. And both of them actually denied that was their intention. But at that point, I think I was just really, I wanted to let them know, and it was petty on my part. And sometimes petty, I'm okay with being petty. But I wanted to let them know that that was probably the best decision they could have made for me, because I wouldn't have left otherwise. And things happen for a reason. And, I'm happy at the job that I'm at. And I hope for you and your conscience that it was worth it, because I did lose my job because of what happened with your exact situation. So, I want you to carry that burden. So
I want you to live with the fact that you did it. Like, and if you do, then, so be it. I'm much like you. Like, I feel like if this hadn't happened, I probably would have continued to deal with a lot of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily deal with in my personal life or anything like that. But I think I mentioned this before, and I'll say it again, and it's no secret. Excuse me. There were a couple of people that I mentioned an exit plan to, and I think I even alluded to that exit plan with my store manager. At one point, I was like, I don't want to be 40 years old at this level. And of course, I turned 40 in August. So I was just like, maybe that was the push to say, well, maybe we're not going to get into that level. So let's, try to stock up some stuff. And that's fine. And again, I'm okay with that, knowing who I am as a person. And I think I appreciate that push, as negative as it might look, on the outside. I appreciate the push to make myself do better. So I'm thankful for that as well.
So let's think of it in terms of if you and I were HR, for our perspective situation. How do you think you would have handled the situation had this come forward to you? Or just based on the experience of what happened to you in this situation, how would you just have handled it in general?
That's a fair question. I think anybody who knows me in my personal life, I try to look at things from all perspectives, and not just concrete. What happened? This is it. What was the intention? What kind of dialogue happened? Who is actually reporting these instances and what's going on? Is it a third party that just happened to walk by when something happened, or is it someone who's directly involved?
Right.
I think I would look at those things more importantly than the actions that were alleged. I mean, there's so many different reasons why people do things. And even in my personal life, I'm always very interested in why people do the things they do. So I think I would carry that into HR personally. I want to know, like, what made you think, even if it was something egregious and really, really bad, I would say, well, what made you do that? Like, let's play with me. Not play with me. Talk to me. What made you decide to do that? Why did you think that was okay? And I would use that as, part of the basis of my final decision. I wouldn't just, I'm not a he say, she say person. I'm not a third party person. I don't like gossip. I like to get to the meat of the matter. And I think oftentimes we don't have those conversations. So I definitely like to be that person to do that.
And I think for me, when I look at the circumstances, and I want to make sure that I'm clear with everybody, I understand that there's a level of accepting responsibility when it comes involved in this. Sure, I completely understand. And that, every situation can be taken a million different ways, and a point can be had about those million different ways that it's, perceived. We're all different people. In this instance, there's no deniability of what has happened here. He's been straight up and honest about what he did and what was said. And this is just our perception of those set behaviors. And we're having a conversation about, how this is played out time and time again over a he said, she said things, which involves other people's feelings. And then they try to say, or the juxtaposition of it being, oh, well, we're just talking about facts. Okay.
Right.
So it's just a weird dynamic that HR plays. And, no disrespect to anybody that wants to go out and do HR. I am an advocate for anybody doing whatever they want to do. But, most of the time when it's Black folks and they're put in these positions, we're on the opposite side of HR. We're never the ones that are being protected, You know what I'm saying? We're typically on the other side where we're, being taken away from a circumstance, because of our role or other people's perception of what we did.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny that you said that because I had a situation in not, this recent former employer, but the former employer behind before that.
mhm,
I won't say who, but
mhm, mhm,
but there was a situation where I felt like I was being discriminated against.
mhm,
And I brought those concerns to the integrity hotline or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called specifically.
mhm,
And, notes were made. I saw nothing come of it. I addressed it again. I said, "Hey, this happened. Like, however you feel about it is how you feel about it. But this happened. What can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again?" Um, I was called out of my name, not in a a really bad name, but it was definitely something I was like, absolutely not. I will cuss you out if you ever
mhm,
call me that again in your entire life. And this person, kind of pushed me, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois. That's a
mhm,
threat. Like
mhm, mhm.
we don't
I
do
think when
that.
anybody, that's a threat. Uh-huh.
We
Yeah.
don't do that. So when
Mhm,
I brought those concerns, in essence, I was asked if I wanted to transfer from that
mhm,
store,
mhm,
and I said absolutely not. I'm not the perpetrator here. I'm the victim. Why would I leave somewhere
mhm,
where I'm comfortable? And it was
mhm,
basically because that particular person was well tenured in the company, presumably well respected in the company, a
mhm,
higher level than me at that time.
mhm,
And it was a slap in the face. It honestly
mhm,
was.
mhm,
And it was then that I noticed that type of discrimination in the workplace where um, things of that sort happen,
mhm.
unfortunately.
Right. It goes down to really exposing the reason, or the ideas of why they protect some and discard others. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And
And
I
I've
was
seen
actually,
it. I've
yeah.
seen it, seen it with my own eyes, not,
And
heard about it from somebody else. I've seen it. I've
I've seen it.
participated in some of these discussions.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. And, I always find myself conflicted in those circumstances just because it's just not, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't sit well with your spirit when you know that you're actively involved in something or seeing something. And the first thing they say is see something, say something. And when you say something, things happen.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. So I was going to share what I think what I would have done, you
Please
know,
do. Go ahead.
had it been, Reggie HR business. I probably would have had, I would have obviously listened to the information from the person that it came from. And then I would have asked them, I said, I understand your concern, but I also want to ask, what's your intention in telling me this? You know what I'm saying? Because I want to make sure, because this is a lot. And, before we go any further, obviously we're going to have to do some investigation. And the investigation starts with you. And I need to
Hmm.
make sure that I know all, necessary motives behind before I go and make a decision that's going to impact that person based on what I'm
Exactly.
hearing from you. So that's the first thing I would have done. Right.
Hmm.
And then once I got that information, that may have, either had a second discussion with you, based on what this person brought to us. I probably wouldn't have had anything to say in terms of why that person brought it to us, but I would have let you know because you should be aware of it.
Hmm.
And then I would do some other investigation just involved with the people who it happened to, and ask them, did they feel uncomfortable? What was their reason? How was their relationship? Although, okay, hitting somebody on the ass at work is inappropriate. We all know that, right?
Hmm.
We
Yep.
all know that. Cursing a coworker out, we all know that on the code of conduct somewhere it says not to do it. But do we not see it on a consistent basis is the question, right? So, we have to consider, okay, what's good for one must be good for the other. Well, Keisha just cussed
Mhm.
out, Barbara last week and she's still here. There was no
She's still here.
investigation involved or whatever the case may be. Or I wasn't privy to the conversation that you guys had to discipline her. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And I don't know what nuances Miss Barbara had versus me and why this is a fireable offense on me in a coaching session for her.
Hmm.
And there are things that I'm not going to know, as a layman's person, but as an HR person, I know, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I would have sat down and had a conversation with you and be like, Jamaal, this is, something that we brought up. And I would actually let you know this is something that, is very serious on surface value. It appears this happened. I just want to hear your side of it. I
Mm-hmm.
would have then heard your side of it. And then I probably would have used this in terms of all of the situations that have happened, nuances, in terms of relationships with people and how well they know each other, in all the interviews I've done. And then I would have used this as a coaching opportunity for the store in terms of cultural behaviors when it comes to, what the store environment should look like.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be
Absolutely.
times where you're going to want to play around in this way. And unfortunately, you can't because of this, this, and this. Not necessarily because Keisha gonna say something. It could be based on, let's say a customer says something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And they felt that it was something that didn't represent the company for. So we would have to make sure that we, address that. But I think that there should have been a warning of some sort, or just
Mm-hmm.
a cultural reset in the company throughout the entire company based on a circumstance that can happen anywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Not just with you.
Yeah.
Because I've been on the other side of having a conversation with somebody at work and said something that I felt strongly about. And that, and it changed when that other person's perspective came into play. Now you can consider it two ways. You can say, well, was he being malicious? Or was that just how he felt?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And on face value, it could be like I said, I hate that bitch. Karen to Sandra, or it could be like, I hate that bitch, girl. Shit. Me and
Right.
Karen, we them all, but that bitch,
I
that's
agree.
the relationship that you got. And because that customer or that person felt uncomfortable, it should be more. There should be more brought to the table. And the last thing that
Absolutely.
I say is, and that ain't got nothing to do with black or white at all. This is just, and if we're talking
Absolutely.
about
Absolutely.
human behavior, which if we quote the Bible, everybody falls short of the glory of God on any given day.
Come on, preacher.
There's a possibility that people will also falter in everyday environment. Human
Mm-hmm.
error. There is a definition called human error that is considered with everything that we process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why do we not consider that, the human element when it comes to the whole HR thing? And
Absolutely.
but yeah, the and then what I would have had is I probably would have circled back with that person and asked them, well, first also I probably would have asked them initially, what do you think we should do about this? And tell
Mm-hmm.
me why you think this is necessary. Do you feel that this is, involve that person that you're getting the information from? Because
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it's going to impact them. So let's say they fire you. They like that. They liked you. They just was having a casual conversation. Now they're impacted and they're looked at as the person who was the one that did everything.
Right.
And then you have
Absolutely.
a hostile environment created. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? Based on everybody else's perception, because it wasn't until this person said something that caused all of this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So involve that person and say, hey, this is what we decided to do. Okay. We're going to have a conversation among all of us because we can't just take this at surface value and think that these things don't happen. They happen and we just need to recalibrate the circumstances before we go and take away
Absolutely.
somebody else's livelihood based on a misunderstanding. That's just
Mm-hmm.
my thought. My
And I think
unadulterated, unfiltered thought.
no, I appreciate it. It sounds I wholeheartedly agree, honestly. I think there's so many different perspectives to things that we don't take a look at because a lot of times we think that the actions are so serious that they don't
Mm-hmm.
warrant that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, no, sometimes we need to take a step back and wonder why this person did what they did or what we allege that they did. Um, I would even add, if I may, because I love all of your points, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about this as you were speaking and how we mentioned before, we need to put the human element back into human resources. Um, I think people need to understand sometimes, and not even just with HR, but in real life in general,
Mm-hmm.
that just because I didn't experience it or I might disagree with it doesn't mean it didn't happen. We
Right.
have to really get to that point to where I might not have the same experiences as you, Reggie, but
Hmm.
let me understand why you've had that experience and what you had to go through in that experience and the aftermath of that experience. I don't
Hmm.
think we do enough of that. I think,
Hmm.
something is so bad, and
Hmm.
then the end goal or the result is just to nip it in the bud right then and there. And
Hmm.
I don't think that's fair. And I'm not even speaking about my own personal, situation. I'm not. I've always felt that way.
Hmm.
Even there were a couple of situations, that I bore witness to,
Hmm.
excuse me, to where I felt like the offending party, if you will, we'll say the defendant. I didn't feel like the defendant got enough
Hmm.
of a chance to explain his side of the situation.
Hmm.
And I made a point, because I was there privy to it, I made a point to let the powers that be know that that person didn't get a chance to defend himself. At the
Hmm.
very least, that person should have the chance to defend themselves and at least say, this is why this happened. This is what made me do this, XYZ.
Hmm.
And, oftentimes that's not the case. Just like you
Hmm.
said, it's always
Hmm.
about, you know, did you do this? It says you can't do this. Bye. I think we
Right.
need to involve people a little bit more. And
Hmm.
even with respect to what you said about my particular case, honestly speaking, it's funny because when I had the conversation on Tuesday about it with the HR representative, I didn't feel like anything that I was saying really mattered.
Hmm.
The whole
They already made a
conversation,
decision,
it
and
it
that's
was like you had
horrible.
already made a decision. And
Right.
it was an absolutely horrible feeling,
Hmm.
knowing that I came into this office to have this conversation and I'm already being deemed like some sort of criminal.
Hmm.
And it just wasn't fair. Like I just
Hmm.
felt like I was just, you did this, you did this, you did this.
Hmm.
You should know better because you took this training and that training and you should know better. And I was like, but I get what you're saying, but are you going to ask me why I did it?
Hmm.
Are we
Right.
going to talk about why? Like
Hmm.
where my head was? And
Hmm.
I was so adamant in repeating it. Even though I felt it didn't matter to the powers
It
that
was,
be,
yeah.
I
Hmm.
was extremely adamant about how I felt and
Hmm.
why I did it. Not,
I agree.
yes, I did it and that's all.
Hmm.
I made sure you knew this is why it happened,
Right.
So
And and I want to make sure that I'm clear on something here, because I don't want anybody to misconstrue my words. We are not victim blaming here.
absolutely not.
We're not,
Absolutely not.
in the circumstances where, and I want to make sure that you guys are clear that we understand the severity. Like, we know on service value that you can't go around hitting people on their ass at
It's
work.
no, you
We
can't do
know that. We
that.
absolutely. It wasn't like we found out that day and then it was like, oh shit, that makes sense. You know what
Oh
I'm saying?
no.
And then you got fired. So I just want to make sure the nuance here is that he knew the people and he had a very close relationship with them.
Person,
So
not people.
I'm sorry, person, because he ain't just hitting people on the asses now.
We're
So
not just walking around, Pat. No,
I,
we don't
I,
do that
I
over here.
appreciate you. I thank you for checking me on that because I
Very
do want to
important. The
make sure.
person,
Yeah, one
one
person,
that I have known
for
11
years.
years.
Mhm. So,
One.
and if it wasn't that person who came forward, do you think it was that person that came forward? I guess I should
Nope.
ask.
There's
If it
there's not a
wasn't that
question in my
person,
mind.
if
Mm-mm.
it wasn't that person that came forward, why? Again, that's why we have to start asking, what's the reason you're bringing this to me? Because you weren't involved in the situation. It was something that
Mm-hmm.
you saw. And I understand that you felt uncomfortable, but tell me why you felt uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
What was it
Exactly.
about it? And then we can kind of expose the validity of the person's, claim. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And or
Let,
motive.
right. Because let's say, I don't know. I'm not going to even interpret or try to understand that person's, I don't know them. So I'm not going
Right.
to try to, number one, my loyalty is to my friend, firstly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with
Secondly,
that.
I don't know the person. I don't know what happened with them, and I don't want to infer or try to understand because that just gets us in the weeds of what the ultimate conversation is. And
And
it's
that's fair.
just,
I get you.
and it's definitely the idea that these things happen, and it's supposed to be not non-filling, but it is, and it can't. And I want to make sure we're clear. There's no way that it can't be because you have your own
Exactly.
perception. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Your perception in it is gonna, I was gonna say indubitably, Uh,
Indubitably.
Indubitably, but then
Indubitably.
I wasn't comfortable with saying it because I felt like I would fumble the word, just like justification. See,
But you did
I
it
fucked up
twice.
that. You know, I said that word so fast because I just wanted to get it over with. But
And you said it right, but
yeah, I know. But
not
the
this
second time, I fucked it up. See,
The first
that's how
time you
my
were
brain
awesome.
be. That's how
I was
my
like,
brain be.
my
It be
friend's
like,
so intelligent. Look at my friend juxtaposition. He's
look
so
at him saying that
intelligent.
word, boy.
He's so
You know.
intelligent.
Now you done made me lose my confidence. Let me use words that I know. So basically, how I feel about that is no, I'm just
Right.
playing. But there's no way that it can be personal. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It has to be because you're pulling from your own experience of what you've seen on the job. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
And you are the one that has the perception of whether someone should, live or die. So, I mean, not like literally, but like, should you stay in this job or, you know what I'm saying? Like have that person
Right.
suffer for, and my accusers, the people that I reached back out to, I told them, I said, I had a very rough time, trying to transition. You essentially took my livelihood away, and I had to make a way. And one thing I can thank you for is the fact that I realized that regardless of any circumstances that may come, I'm gonna make it work. You know what I'm saying? No matter how tough it is. I mean,
and you did, and you did. Even from the outside looking in,
mm-hmm.
of course, me knowing the situation, you really did. You bounced back, and I commend you for that. To be completely honest.
I mean, me and Carlos definitely incurred debt that we, still have to this day that we're paying back off. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I think. And it's going to be a work in progress, regardless. So it's a circumstance that you can't take back, and I have to honor it. And these are just like any other nuanced situations involving feelings and so on and so forth that we have to allow people to be able to process, to be able to fully grasp. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I want y'all to know. I want y'all to know, like, if Jamaal had came on here and he said he did something wrong, I would not have hesitated to let Jamaal know. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't have been like, I'm like, Jamaal, no, you know better, man. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but go ahead.
And I don't want to make it, I was going to say, I don't want to make any excuses. I mean, I did what they said that I did, and I admitted that I did what they said that I did. And I think the issue with me was we can't. I just really hated how it just felt like my character was being maligned based on something that, from my point of view, was harmless. And it seemed like the point of view of whoever was the responding person, whoever it was, mattered a little bit more than what I did. And that was just such an uneasy feeling. I've never been the type of person to not, admit culpability in anything that I've done. I am 39 years old. My motto has always been, if I'm grown enough to do it, I'm grown enough to own up to it. And I did. And here we are.
Here we are. So, we definitely beat a dead horse on that. Unless you want to
continue. That's fine.
what I was gonna say, nope, that's not what I want to put up there. What I was gonna ask now is, okay, so now we've accepted the idea that this has happened.
I have a gnat flying around. What is going on?
Let's interview the gnat. The gnat, hey,
Mr. Gnat, come here.
What is your take? Because they clearly have something to say. The gnat does. What is it? Oh, okay. Gotcha. That makes sense. Well,
no comment.
Thank you.
Okay, well then stay your ass over there.
Yeah. So now that this has happened, we had the realization of, this happened. We decided that we were gonna, move on.
Yes.
What would you consider would be your next move? I mean, other than the obvious, find the job, or I mean, that's obvious, right? But are you gonna? Yeah. What's next? What's next?
When you ask what's next, do you mean as far as that company is concerned, or what do you mean? Like,
well, I mean, it could mean that, but it could be just you. So Jamaal going forward,
The net has returned.
Oh,
Hi.
yeah. It's a spy. It's a spy for Coles, man.
It's a drone. I'm
For
convinced because it was
Coles.
actually
Yep.
relatively big. It's a
It's
drone.
from
I'm
Coles. You better
convinced,
watch
and I don't
yourself.
care because I don't give a fuck.
There you go.
I
There you
mean,
go.
what? I don't work there anymore. What can be done?
Hmm.
Um, as far as the company is concerned,
Hmm.
I want to stress and I want to reiterate that I have no ill will towards the company, towards
Hmm.
any of its representatives.
Hmm.
How I felt in those moments are not
Hmm.
indicative of how I feel now.
Hmm.
Um, Even though I felt again that my character was completely maligned and completely just like nothing about my loyalty to the corporation mattered, nothing about my tenure with the company mattered, nothing about my results that I gave to the company and the store individually mattered.
Hmm.
Of course, all of that affected me um, a lot in that moment. Now that I've thought about it, I was like, for what? Why,
Hmm.
why dawdle? So as far as the company is concerned, again, and I want to stress, excuse me, I have no ill will towards the store, any of its representatives, the
Hmm.
company, and any of its representatives. I didn't go on a like Facebook deleting spree and started deleting everybody that works there. Like I'm not that person
Hmm.
because we as adults, even within the company, are taught to build relationships with people. And so I feel like I've built relationships with people and not the company. If
Hmm.
they are the types of people to, meld those lines a little bit too much, that's on them.
Hmm.
I know the difference between separation of employment and
Hmm.
people. Like, I'm not your friend because you work at Kohl's, if that makes sense. Like,
Hmm.
if that's the case, I would have deleted some of my other former companies' friends
Hmm.
a long time ago. I don't do that. So that said, anything regarding that particular company, I don't really have anything for. Like I don't
Hmm.
really like. I still have their credit card. I'm gonna still shop. I still get
Hmm.
my little 30% in the mail, and I'm gonna go shop. And I
Hmm.
pay that
Hmm.
card off and keep it. That's one of my longest credit cards, so I'm not messing up my credit history.
Hmm.
Um, so that said, now will I go out on a limb to stop by a store or something? Probably not. It's probably
Hmm.
not going to happen. But any of my former coworkers, they want to reach out to me, they absolutely can.
Hmm.
My phone number is the same, my email address is the same. I
Hmm.
live in the same apartment. The rent is paid,
Hmm.
and I'm not over here hurting for nothing, destitute, desolate. Like I'm okay.
Hmm.
Beyond that, I think I'm gonna, just kind of. My sister told me this, and I think that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna kind of rest for a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, I might do some traveling. I'm not. I'm going to do some traveling. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure.
Okay.
For an undetermined amount of time. I don't know
Hmm.
how long. We'll see. One day
Hmm.
I'll just hop on Facebook and somebody's name tag on my chest, and this is where
Hmm.
I am now. But
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
time being, I'm gonna enjoy me. I'm gonna get
Okay.
back to me and kind of enjoy the time that I have.
Hmm.
Anybody who's worked retail know like retail can be very demanding. Retail
Hmm.
can be very tiring, if you will,
Hmm.
and you're not afforded a lot of opportunity to like really go somewhere and enjoy yourself.
Hmm.
Um, Listen, maybe Christmas time I can finally go home. I haven't been home for Christmas
Aw.
since 2000. I think the last Christmas I was home was 2005, maybe
Wow.
2006.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've been home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. So
Hmm.
maybe I'll ride this out to the end of the year. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
the rent is paid.
The rent is paid, he said. So
Anybody
it's
has any questions, the rent is paid. Now, if you
the
want to
rent is
cash at me a donation, that's fine. Because the car insurance ain't paid and the car note ain't paid.
right, right,
I might be
exactly.
eating I might be eating noodles for the rest of
Hmm.
the year.
Yeah, to
But
make it
but
happen.
right. But honestly, I don't want to tie myself down to any type of timeline.
Good, good.
If a great opportunity arises, I'm here
Hmm.
for it. I'll listen to it and see if it works for me. Great. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't, I'm chilling.
Hmm.
I'm not. I just don't want to. I don't like trying to define, how I live my life by some specific schedule,
Hmm.
aside from a work schedule, of course. But um, so I don't know. I say all of that to say
Hmm.
I don't know exactly what the future is going to hold, but I'm willing to embrace it,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
Hmm.
And it's okay. One thing that I've learned as an adult, as a 41-year-old male, is there are a
Really
lot of
old?
shut up. Well, you ain't too far behind me, so I mean, come
But
on,
you'll
clearly.
always be older. But you'll always be older.
Yeah, true, touche. Um, but I think, and I just want this to be a testament to people that these things can happen in any aspect of your life. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You could you can make plans on, being somewhere for a while, and it doesn't work out that way. And that was part of the reason why I decided to, create my own business, because I wanted to make sure that I secure our future, in multiple ways, in the event that
Absolutely.
I don't think that I'm going to do anything that's going to jeopardize, my job per se, but, I do, think that it's always good to have a plan. And this was as of recent that I came up with this, this epiphany, if you will. A lot of people, you can call it Johnny come lately or whatever the case may be. But honestly and truly, I learned to let go of doing the expected move. After, having extinction level events like I've had in the last 5 years, with Darlena dying, George actually passing away, in 2017, my military buddy George, Carlos's
Hmm.
father passing. There was a lot of circumstances that made me realize that once you're gone, you're gone. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
There's no more expectation for you after that. So I have to let go of some of the expectations that I have for my life. I don't want to be a prison to, well, I'm 41 years old and I'm not a manager, or I'm 41 years old and I'm choosing to work for myself, or some of the expectations that we put on ourselves sometimes just because of what our friends and family out there are doing. That might be great for you,
Hmm.
Keisha. You can go out there and work full time and do hair or whatever the case may be. That works for you. But what works for
For
me is
you.
right. What works for me is something completely different. I might want something a little bit more stable. And, I might be
Hmm.
okay with not having extra responsibility, because that's how I feel it's great to live my life. And I just want folks to just understand that, you know, you do have the right to choose how
Hmm.
life goes to you. I mean, it's surprising to me how much expectation that I've had on myself, and how I let those things show up even in the job that I do now. You know what I'm saying? Like my first couple of weeks that I was in training doing this position that I'm doing now, I was really hard on myself. I was like, oh my God, you need to have this ready and blah 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 and all this stuff. And and then I had to take a step back. I was like, why am I putting so much pressure on myself? You're in
Hmm.
training. You're allowed to be able to process what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? And I just have to learn to be kind to myself enough to know that I don't have it all figured out. And sometimes I am going to make decisions that might not necessarily make sense to anybody else. It just has to make sense to me and my husband. You know what I'm
That's the
saying?
most important thing. We have to stop letting other people dictate what we do for
Hmm.
ourselves, because they're not going to take care of us when things
Hmm.
go awry.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have a sugar daddy or a sugar mama.
And hey, that's
They,
fine too.
listen, I'm open.
If you, hey, I know I'm married, but I'm open
I'm
too.
available.
So, you know, Carlos and I would love to go on a cruise, sweetie. Yes, anytime.
Listen,
Um,
listen. I'm just saying. I
yeah,
don't mind being somebody's date.
right,
Let's go.
right, exactly. I want to tell this story real quick, because during that time frame in 2018,
Hmm.
I was working at Sprint, and I want to let me go back. So in 2016, Carlos worked for another company down here that's not Universal, that also specializes in, you know, uh, making, being the happiest place on earth, or in the world,
Mm,
happy place. You might know that place based on what I just said.
maybe, but
He
we
had
won't
had,
say.
yeah, he had had aspirations to work with that place, because he had come when he was in Venezuela back in like the 90s and visited, and he always believed in the magic behind what he saw.
Hmm.
So he was working at the company that he's at now, Universal, um, and they unfortunately didn't want to give him part time. So he found an opportunity to be able to work for the happiest place on earth. full time. So he made the transition. He left, put in his 2 weeks notice, made the transition, came back over to, came over to that place, and it was great the first few months. It was actually against my wishes. I told him, I said, I prefer you stay at Universal because it's tried and true. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that was fear on my end. That was fear. Let's not switch it up or change it up or nothing like that.
And that's fair. That's fair.
So he decided to make the transition. He was with them for about 6 months, and it was a circumstance where he was questioned about doing something that everybody else does. And when they pressed him about it, he said, yes, I did do it. And they fired him. Actually, they suspended him, told her to go home, and they were going to get his HR because they're union, their union rep to represent him. Mm-hmm. And they went through the whole process. He went to this meeting that they had, and they decided to fire him anyway. So he opted out to not what do you call it, to fight, because he could have appealed it. So he at that time, he knew a friend, because Carlos is very good at keeping relationships. I have to commend him on that. He had a friend that he was really close to that he worked with at night at Universal. She had another job. She worked 2 full-time jobs. In the place that he went to, you ever heard of Cooper's Hawk?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have one in? Really good place, actually. Very, very good place.
I don't make enough money to know if they have it here.
I think they have a Cooper's Hawk in Jacksonville. I want to say they do.
They do. No, okay. They definitely do.
So
I think there's 2 here.
Okay, look at y'all too. There's 2 in Orlando too. One on our side, downtown. Well, not that International Drive, and one's in Waterford Lakes, which is quite a ways away. But anyway, he worked for them. He got the job based on her recommendation. Full time. They hired him full time. When I tell you, Carlos hated that job, he hated it. Hated it. And it was a very influential time in our relationship, because that was kind of the first real times that we had tumultuous times like that, So
Gotcha.
For me, it was like, you need to stay, because yes, it may be hard now, but that don't mean it's going to always be hard. You know what I'm saying? So you have to stick through it, And, I promise you, if you just give it a little bit of faith and just keep going, well, part of it is exaggeration from my husband, but it never got better. And we had a conversation. I was like, man, I really feel like this is going to be a representation of how you're going to view this relationship, because you're not willing to stick through it when it gets hard. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're not willing to do the work at your job. How do I know that you're not going to have that same feeling in our relationship? You know what I'm saying? So I was conflating the two, which to me, it made sense. You know what I'm saying? This is somebody I've married. Like, we hadn't had any real severe issues at this point, and this is something that you're uncomfortable with for a little bit. And, I don't know how many times I done worked 12 to 9, for us. And I, worked in Orange City, to Orlando. And that's an hour and 10-minute drive every night, getting off at 10 o'clock at night. You know what I'm saying? So this is a testament of what I've done, and so on and so forth. So I say all that to say, one day Carlos had it. One of his employees gave him the finger. Carlos don't like to be disrespected. 2 things Carlos don't like. He don't like to repeat himself. And he don't like to be disrespected.
And I've borne witness to that.
So just so you know, you think he's a sweet teddy bear, Carlos will get you right. You do one of those 2 things.
He will definitely.
So, and
I've seen it with my own eyes.
So like full firsthand, So that night he was just like, I'm done. I'm not going back to that job.
You gotta say it in his voice. Say it in his voice.
Love. I'm not going back to that job. I'm not. I can't. And I'm like, what happened, Carlos? This mother mucker, gave me the bird. And I just, no, I don't like that, love. I don't like that. And I'm like, Love, you got to go back to work. No, I'm not going back. I will figure it out. I will go somewhere else. I am not working there. And I'm like, so you're going to quit? And he's like, yes, I'm going to quit. Little did I know he had kept open communication with one of the people, one of the sous chefs at Universal.
Mm-hmm.
And he reached out to him. And he's like, hey, man, I don't like where I'm at. Can you get me back? Full time. That man called Carlos so freaking quick.
Yeah.
When? How? Do this application right now. I will make it happen. I promise you.
Right now.
So within like 2 days, Carlos had orientation, and he got back on with Universal. Now I told that story in that exact tone because I'm setting the expectation for what I'm about to tell you.
That's fine.
So I work for Sprint, and at this point I'm 37 years old. I'm in retail. I'm not happy. I'm not happy where I'm at because of these reasons. And no matter where you go in this position, there's always going to be a time where you're going to make a lot of money, and then it's just going to be average going forward, right? That's just the way it is. And, you just have to, grin and bear it, And I took the $10.30, an hour because at this point I have to practice what I preach. You know what I'm saying? Right. It might be uncomfortable, but hey, this is what you're going to do. So they hired me part-time. I was getting like 26 hours, and I was doing Uber on the side. And then eventually I had an opportunity to be able to go full-time at another location. So I transferred from the store that I was at to a different location, and I was doing good initially. And then, they hired me on the premise of speaking Spanish, which I do. But, there's a difference between regular Spanish and then Brazilian Spanish. My ear wasn't trained to that. So I had a very difficult time, having headaches and all that other stuff. And I had, there were times where I clashed with other people, management team and stuff like that. And, people just misunderstood certain things. And about 9 months in, about 8 months in, because it was January of 2018, I'm sorry. I was like, I remember this circumstance in terms of this young lady that I had dealt with. And at the time, I had applied for Apple and the company that I'm at now. Apple had taken me through the whole process. And it started in the month of April or August. I had actually gotten a position, had the interviews with Apple, had the interview with the other company. The other company in 2 days had got back to me and said they was going to offer me the position. But it wasn't going to start until October 29th to be exact. So I had about 2 months where I would, that I would have to stay where I'm at or transition to another position. With Apple, I had 5 interviews. It was a lot.
No, thank you.
Only for part-time. So anyway.
No, thank you.
Fast forward to my situation that I had with a young lady. We were not going back and forth, but she was completely disrespectful. And I was like, you know what? And I said, you know what? I'm done. This is it. This is going to be my last 2 weeks in this place. I am no longer interested in working here. And before that, I was going to work. I would call Carlos, like, I don't want to go to work. And he's like, love, you have to. And he's like, I don't want to go to work. Love, you have to. Telling me the same shit that I told him over at Cooper's Hawk and Universal. And he's telling me now, and I, for a little bit, it was my motivation to go in. That day, I told him, I said, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. Love, you can't. You don't have anything lined up just yet. I said, you remember Cooper's Hawk? He said, yep. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. And he goes, oh, you know what? You're right. Okay. Okay, that's
above me now.
It's above me now. You know what I'm saying? And after that, it's so funny because his face just changed. He was like, "Oh, you're right. I did. I have to trust you." You know what I'm saying? So I just thought that it was hilarious that that happened because again, we both were in circumstances where we didn't like it. And if I not had him and he not had me, we probably would have stayed. You know, I mean, I would have left Sprint probably October instead of, because I quit like the first day of September in 2018. My 2 weeks notice ended around that time frame. So I really had no lineup of jobs or anything. I thought in my mind, I thought that I was going to get Apple, and then Apple was going to then I'd make the decision. I see whether I was going to either take Apple or wait for Liberty Mutual, the company that I work for, the company that I work for. But I mean, y'all, you've probably seen it before. I mean, come on. But but that, you know, but
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And long story short, you know, I just went out on faith. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I did Uber, made enough money to kind of, you know, I put so many miles on my car. And I ended up making money, you know, to be able to just sustain the next couple of weeks. Yeah, it was tough, but, you know, I ended up getting myself out of that position. And I'm grateful to God to have this job that I have currently. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say to y'all people out there that are listening, is sometimes you just have to make the decision that's best for you, or you will be forced to be, you know, you will be forced to have to accept a decision that you wouldn't have done on your own.
Absolutely.
And that's ultimately what it's about here. So my recommendation for everybody is to take control of your life. You know what I'm saying? Seriously, bring, you know, family members, your counselor, whoever else you need to dissect what's going on. And really take the time necessary to make the best decision for you. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's your life. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you decide to do, exactly. You have to live it. Nobody else.
Is that a song?
You know? I don't know that song. I don't know it.
Live it your
I don't know that song. Okay. I don't know that song.
Oh, there was a different one.
You got another one.
Live your life today, not for tomorrow. The theme song for Rock, the TV show Rock.
I don't remember that. And he called me old. He called me old like 4 times. Come on, who does anybody remember Rock? Who? What are the actors? Who?
Charles S. Dutton.
Who is that?
Rocky Carroll.
I don't know who that
Joyce.
is. I
forgot the daddy name.
Yeah, I actually know the I know the show.
You know, he used to kick his little foot. He used to kick his foot randomly. He had a bald head.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
That was actually a really good show. That was a really good black show. Yeah,
it was a great black show. Does anybody? I need somebody to tell me if it's streaming somewhere, because I would definitely watch it. Yeah. I was a big In Vogue fan back then, so I was even more excited when they came on because I was already watching the show. But to see them on there, the Downtown Divas, I'm showing my age, but almost 30 years ago.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? The things that stick with you over life. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like.
Yes.
Rock is one of those things that are like, if you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
if you know, you know.
It's not mainstream. You know what I'm saying?
It's not.
It's like
it didn't reach the heights of, say, like Living Single or In Living Color,
right?
Or Martin, but it was just as important. That was a good show.
Yeah,
I think it was on for like 4 seasons, maybe 3 or 4.
I think so. I think you're right. It's so interesting
because they had a different theme song. And that's not child.
You know the first theme song too. Like, for example, you remember when Thea had her sitcom?
Oh my God!
And Brandy was on it.
And Brandy was on it before the bob braids.
Right.
Yes. And what's the boy name?
Jason Weaver.
I was gonna say he's one of my friends. I hope he's not watching this, but he was on.
You know him?
Like, I don't know him like personally, but we've met in different circles and stuff. Yes.
Okay.
He's good people. He's good people. He's hilarious.
Yeah, Jason Weaver. I actually follow Jay Weaver.
I've met him a long. I think right when he was doing. I originally met him right after. his first album. He was probably like 14. I was probably like, I think 10 or so. No, I was probably like 12. And then I met him again through like another, like we have a lot of mutual friends. He's from Chicago, but we have a mutual friend, and I was like, oh my God, that's Jason Weaver. I remember him and stuff like that. Someone's knocking on my door. Hold, please. Yes. Hi. Not at the moment, no. Go for it.
You would think you would think, you know, he would be a professional and put do not disturb taping right. I'm just playing.
I don't know how to do that. I should have done that. But yeah, so he's cool people. I really
that show lives in my head rent free, and I actually go
funny.
on YouTube and find it sometimes.
Yes, because it didn't last long at all.
No,
like,
and I loved it.
I remember. I was just gonna say, I remember. I think I was in high school, like maybe my senior year, when BET started showing the reruns.
Yes,
and I would run that VCR to tape them.
But then they also, because it used to be on ABC, I think, and then they also ABC or CBS, I can't remember. But then they also had some episodes that they didn't air on ABC.
Yes,
they showed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
I
was
don't remember this.
Yeah. But it's time for us to bid you adieu, guys. We it's that time. You know, we can kick it for hours, honey. At least I know I can.
I forgot to get a napkin this time. So I can dab my eye.
You know, dab his little eye.
My address ain't showing.
But you know, I wanted to.
That's how I was crying on Tuesday.
Oh yeah, I probably would have done the same thing. But guys, I love the fact that y'all. I really wanted to flesh this conversation out because we hit some gems, and it ended abruptly. I felt, and I listened back to the episode, and it was actually really, really fun. So this week, you guys, or actually, by the time you see this, it'll be 2 weeks from now. You'll get episode 2. Yeah. Because yours, no. Yeah, a week. Yeah, I guess you would say 2 weeks because it's not this week, but next week when this will launch. So, so we're going to be doing promo for the episode 1 coming up. And, by that time episode 2 comes out, you guys will have questions, that you can answer. So, or ask, or that you need answer in a very specific way.
And I'll even make sure to try, like, even when it airs or whatever, I'll definitely try to be there so I can answer some of the questions if you have any directly from me.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can do it live. Maybe we can do it live after. Yeah, we can do it live after. We'll work on that. Hey, assistant, write that down.
Alexa, put in my appointment book.
So, with that being said, guys, you know where you can find me at.
She's right there. I'm surprised
she's right there.
Didn't say anything.
Yeah, no. You can find me at Reggie's Expression, and that's Reggie, REGGEE 'S Expressions on YouTube and Facebook. And you can also find me at Reggie's Expressions, REGGEES _expressions on Instagram. That's gonna get on every time. Every time.
And every time you do it, I laugh. REGGEE.
Because
you're playing double dutch.
REGGEES expressions.
Exactly. Listen, there's your ID for your promotion, for a promotional commercial. REGGEE apostrophe S.
Yes. So y'all know where to find us, and Jambivalent on Facebook. And not Facebook, but Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is Jambivalent. Twitter is Jambivalent1, the number 1, so Jambivalent1. I think if you search Jambivalent, I can't even talk.
On YouTube,
Jambivalent on Facebook, I'm sure it pops up. I think on YouTube as well. I think I switched from J. Croy to Jambivalent. An evolving. You know what that is?
Growth. So have a good night, guys. I appreciate you. We'll catch you on the flip side. Peace. Hang back, Jamaal.